What is up, everybody? Day 3 is starting in a couple of minutes. I'll let everybody get on. Let's see. Sure, I'm streaming live. 1 second. 1 minute. Can everybody see me? Let's see. Make sure this is good. Hello. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. We will start in a few minutes. Let's let everybody get on. What's up, Cliff? What's up, Rob? Hello, hello. Let's see. 2 more minutes and we will get started. All right. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Can everybody hear me? Can you drop in the chat that you can hear me? Mr. Eldridge, what's up, man? Good morning or good evening. Let's see. All right, guys, we're going to start in 1 minute. Rob says he can hear me. Awesome. All right. So 1 minute, we're getting started. All right. Let's begin. Can everybody see my screen? Can everybody see the screen correct? All right. Drop in the chat if you can see the screen. It's looking good. All right, sweet. Well, let's get started. So if you guys attended the last couple days, you see the same screen every time, the Fitness Business Mastery Method. This is the LinkedIn method to attract equinox-quality clients. I would start the screen just because I like to see it, because I know it's good. So let's dive into it. So day 3, what are we going to get into today? How to build your equinox-quality client generating machine on LinkedIn, and why is this important? And how we are enrolling $5,000 to $10,000 plus equinox-quality clients on LinkedIn with our system and helping our clients do that. So that is what this is all about. Let's get into it. So like I said, the last couple of days, I want to reiterate, my goal for this masterclass is to really help you guys crack the code at truly communicating the right way online and on LinkedIn specifically, right? Does this work for everywhere? Absolutely. But if you do it on LinkedIn first, you're going to get the benefit. Whereas if you're everywhere else, you might still get leads and conversations and calls, but it's not really optimal for your business, if that makes sense. And so let's dive into it. So obviously the agenda is day 3. So how to build your equinox-quality client generating machine on LinkedIn. So let's do it. Day 2 recap, let's talk about it. We covered messaging to attract equinox-quality clients, how to position yourself as the best and only option for them, and the old way versus the new way of selling. So I'm curious, what was your top takeaway from yesterday and the homework? Drop in the chat. I want to see, what did you guys learn and what really stood out for you personally, where you're like, all right, this made sense to me and I took something from this. I'll give you guys a couple minutes to drop that, or a few seconds. Let's see. Scott's joining. Cool. So Jackson said, definitely excited to apply this. Who else? Cliff, what did you take away from this yesterday? Jackson said positioning is key. Cool. What else? Robert said developing an actual plan for individualized clients. For sure. Well, cool. Keep those rolling in. I'm gonna go to the next step. So let's talk about this. Now you know how to position yourself as the best and only option. How do you generate leads, right? Like this is a really important part because without this, nothing really matters. So we're going to cover why LinkedIn has a higher concentration of premium buyers when compared to other platforms, how to outbound target based on job title and psychographics, and how to use the mirroring profile to attract inbound leads who see you as their best and only option based on their lifestyle. So one more question before we start. What is the number one question you have on lead generation for LinkedIn? Drop in the chat. So Mr. Eldridge said he learned understand the psychology of attracting clients. For sure. Cliff said that you have to have something that makes you stand out from the crowd. Just a customized plan is not enough. And health and fitness is what we all do, which makes, let's see, which makes you special, correct? For sure. All right, let's chat about it. So how to build your equinox-quality client generating machine. Let's get into it. Why LinkedIn? Well, here's just the fact when it comes to LinkedIn versus the other platforms. I know, maybe a lot of you have tried it. Maybe you're doing it now, maybe you're not doing it. But here's just how both platforms, or kind of comparing Instagram and Facebook versus LinkedIn. Instagram and Facebook will prioritize hashtags. So it's practically useless when it comes to showing up in searches. You can hashtag, and then what you have to do is you have to go follow, like, and comment on people's posts. Now, that's a great engagement tool, but the issue with it is it's really hard to get seen, right? If you are mass DMing people and you're going through hashtags, your visibility is very low because they have an other folder. In LinkedIn, there's no other folder. And so the reason this works really well is that it's a lot more direct. When you actually make a connection, people see your stuff. When it comes to targeting on Facebook and Instagram, you have to go to Facebook groups. You have to continue to do hashtags and try to target in the ways that you can, which is just a lot more indirect. It's not that it can't work. Obviously, we're in a Facebook group right now, and I'm presenting this, but the fact of the matter is, when it comes to you guys searching for this type of clientele, the client you want, they're going to be 4 barriers away from every message you send them because they have to look at your content. They have to follow you. They have to add you as a friend on Facebook. And it's just not as effective. Scott put, he's always struggled with self-promotion. I want to make sure I got these as well. All right, cool. I don't want to miss this. So now let's go to LinkedIn. When it comes to LinkedIn, the reason I love it so much and the reason it's been so effective for our clients is that you have hyper-specific targeting, job title, zip code, company, years of experience, and you can mix and match how you target people on LinkedIn to get the best results. And so this is really good for finding high-level clients. You are focusing more on like a sniper rifle versus a shotgun. And the reason I love this is because it makes sense. You want to spend less time trying to get in front of people in their inbox and more time actually talking to them and communicating the value of what you do. And if you can't even like connect with them, it doesn't really matter. You're going to spend your time producing a lot of content, hoping that the algorithm alone on Facebook and Instagram will show up, across the right people with the right amount of time, which it does, but it's not as targeted and specific. So let's continue. So who's actually on LinkedIn and why does this matter? Let's kind of dive into it. Executives, corporate professionals, high-powered people of all kinds. If you do a search, there are over 4 million CEOs, 5 million lawyers, and 8 million doctors. Guys, you don't need that many clients to generate high-ticket business, but you need the right clients. Here's some shots right here. If you go doctor, executives, and lawyers, you literally have more results than you could possibly deal with. So imagine spending your time, let's say even building a network of 5,000 people, right? Over the course of 3 to 6 months, let's say you had 5,000 people that were organically in your network, but they were all of one of these job titles. And you're actually able to build a relationship with them. They trusted you. They gave you referrals. They actually saw you as the best and only option. How would your life change if these people would be willing to pay you $5,000 plus, and then they stayed with you, and then they gave you referrals? This is how our clients have done some crazy things. And once again, when you do this right, this actually happens. It's not like hey, here's this cool idea. It might work for you, it might not. If you're not doing it correctly, it's not going to work. If you follow our process, it definitely works. So here's an example. One of our clients, Molly, she was reached out to by a CEO on LinkedIn and looking for a health coach. This exact message turned into $100,000 plus deal. And crazy is that she didn't go chase this client down. She wasn't trying to make them believe that her offer had value. This person reached out to her because everything we did, from her messaging to some of the objection in the videos she created to her actual offer to her profile, all lined up for this person. And this turned into a crazy deal. And here's an example of that. This is a check, one of her checks, one of the monthly checks she got from this client. And so I think actually Molly's here today. Molly, do you want to hop on and kind of share what happened here and kind of how this went?
Can everybody hear me? I'm pretty sure I unmuted myself, but I'm not sure. Yeah, you guys. So first of all, I mean, the whole reason this person reached out to me in the first place was because I had not a lot of content. Like I really didn't have a lot because this was also halfway through last year. So I had even fewer results and less content than I have now. But my profile stood out to where this person reached out to me. So that was nice, first of all, just to have someone come to me. It is really important to know how to properly reach out to people, because if you don't know how to professionally reach out to people on your own on LinkedIn and do it in a high value way, you will miss out on a lot of fantastic clients that want to work with you. So that's really important too. But this person reached out to me, and what was interesting was that I ended up selling him personally my highest tier package, which was $22,000 for 6 months. I had never done that before. But I truly felt like that was the best fit for this guy. And so he went with it. And after talking to him more too, I found out that he had talked to other local high-end premium expensive fitness coaches and didn't like what they had to offer. Like it just didn't feel right to him. And so he ended up going with me. And that was because I had the right offer that Samim, you guys were able to help me craft. So it was a no-brainer for this guy, even though my stuff was more expensive and even though he had other options. The way that this happened was basically I took that guy through his own personalized program for 6 months. He liked the results he got. And then in the beginning of this year, he's really invested in his company, really likes investing in his top players. And so talked to his leadership team and found out that a lot of their goals for the year was about getting in shape. And so he asked me, like, can you take on 8 guys, can we have you coach my top 8 guys for the next 6 months? And because I had my premium program with him price anchored at $22K for 6 months, when I made the $100K offer for 8 people, that was like a deal for them. So I was still getting paid over $10K per person for 6 months from his leadership team. On top of that, still with his premium program running, and then ended up the reason this month was so high is he ended up, I think at one point I was coaching 11 people. So he had like his original 8 guys that he had me coaching for over 10K per person per 6 months. And then ended up adding people to it. So this was, I don't know what month this was, I guess probably the last one here, but yeah, wild. And that says a lot about like just the clients that you get in general are worth more than just their personal value, because it's also like the referrals that you get from people who are willing to pay you like this are automatically going to be qualified people that you would want to be working with who are also invested in their health. Versus, I just remember my experience with Instagram and Facebook was like either people I already knew who were like family and friends, and I was trying to like convince them, hey guys, this is worth a lot of money, or it was like new random leads who were just low quality, and it was just exhausting. So yeah. And I started with nothing. I mean, 2 years ago on LinkedIn, I didn't even know how it worked. Like I didn't have a profile.
How many connections do you have now? Like you've done like in 24 months, you have like what, maybe 10 or 12,000?
12,000. Yeah.
So 12,000 connections. And what was your total revenue in the last couple of years?
And this was even last month, but I think 714,000, over 700, definitely over that now.
And this is all from LinkedIn, right?
All from LinkedIn. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So guys, I think what's interesting here is that like It's a
Actually,
lot of
well,
people.
can I all from LinkedIn, but what's cool too is like all from LinkedIn with what's nice is like I basically optimize everything for LinkedIn now, since that's what's worth my time. And these are the people like I love my clients, you guys. I don't have words for how awesome it is to work with high value, smart, driven people that like don't waste your time. They don't waste their time. It's so gratifying to give, I mean, you can look at my, my profile or whatever, see the transformations. Like it feels so good to work with high quality people. So everything I do is optimized for LinkedIn and the people on there. And now I know my target client really well. So it's a lot easier now for me to like make content that I know will speak to my person. But also with that, like optimizing for LinkedIn and like Samim, your program is so, there's so much psychology that you learn where it just becomes a skill and you know how to speak in a way that attracts those high quality clients. And now that I'm reposting, all of my LinkedIn content, I always repost it to my Instagram and my Facebook. And even though I'm not spending any time on there, like reaching out to people, it attracts LinkedIn quality people. It's so funny. I mean, I can see it instantly when somebody connects with me on Instagram or Facebook. If that happens, they look more like a LinkedIn person. But that's because I've optimized for LinkedIn. Yeah.
It's just interesting because you realize, like, you hear all the time, like, do you ever have to motivate your clients? Like, honestly?
No, and I was talking to a woman the other day who was in a program, and it was like really focused on basically like getting her certified in nutrition and workouts. And it was really focused on like on that. And basically she was working with really like just low paying clients. And the program was basically like, you need to start by working with really low paying clients so that you can kind of like, learn how to coach. And if you just work with a couple like, low ticket clients, then you'll be able to become a better coach and then eventually somehow attract higher paying clients. And her questions to me were like, how do you motivate people? Like, how do you get people to stay on your program? And like, because I'm really struggling with these low paying clients that I'm kind of like testing out my coaching with right now. And my thought was like, I spend almost zero time. I help people get back on track for sure, like if they fall off track, but like, I don't ever have to convince the people who are paying me 10K and up per package that they should be motivated, that they are already qualified. And they're telling me that they're motivated by being willing to invest like that. So, because we want to coach, we want to focus on the transformation and we want to focus on taking our clients, to the end result. We don't want to be spending time convincing our clients that this is worth it. And so when you do it this way, you waste a lot less time with things that don't matter.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy to see that, like, guys, a really important part of understanding, like, if your messaging is not good, but you think it's good, but it's not working, it's probably not speaking to the right person. And so, and her and I have probably gone through 5 iterations of our offer, and we've adjusted and we've changed it over the last, like, 2 years, and it's made a difference. And she's been able to sell higher and higher packages with better people. And here's the fact, guys: as a coach online, your job is not to get a lot of clients. I'm sorry, but with the way social media is built, it is not the intention. If you try to get a ton of clients at a low price, you will burn yourself out and you will hate what you do, because the energy you're spending, like, you could be spending doing something that helps your business. You're trying to convince the wrong people to buy, which is exhausting. So anyway, yeah, I mean, Molly, thanks for hopping on and kind of sharing that. But I think it's just important to see that, guys, obviously this is a huge, like, win for her, and she's made some great strides. She didn't start off selling these kind of clients. Like, where did you start in terms of your actual business? Like, you're not overly certified. You're not like doing a million things. Like, what was your beginning process to this?
Just with like getting into it. Well, I
Yeah.
remember, I'm certified actually in either nutrition or exercise. And so I remember that was like one of my really big fears. I am personally very experienced. Like, I have a very long story with why I'm passionate about health and fitness. And so I understand nutrition specifically, like, extremely well. And I know I'm really knowledgeable, like I'm an expert, but I had concerns jumping into this. Like, I remember joining your program. I was like, okay, obviously these people are making high ticket sales on LinkedIn. And I trusted that you could help me do that too. But one of my other fears was like, if I take on a CEO, like, how do I fulfill on that? Like, I want to make sure that, I know my stuff, but I want to make sure that I'm helping them in the ways they really need help, like with their lifestyle and all of that. And so, I mean, that was one of I can talk more on it later, but I had been in a previous business coaching program and it wasn't fitness specific. And so when I had these questions of like, how do I help the guys that are traveling and need to work out? Or how do I help somebody go from, like okay shape to like this guy wants 6-pack abs? And to me, because you have done it specifically, like you have already gone through the coaching process yourself, any high level concern that I had or any question that I had on actually how do I coach these guys, especially I'm coaching men and you had a lot of experience with that, you always had like a direct, you had an answer for me. And I think that, before when I was doing it on my own, I thought the solution was maybe I need to go through more courses and maybe I need to like understand higher level nutrition, or maybe I need to like become more certified and then I'll have all the answers for these high level clients. But the truth was like, I just needed to make sure I had access to you whenever I had a question. And then as questions came up through my coaching process, I could always ask you and you could always give me the answer. And because you guys, like, I just remember there were so many things that I thought were important and I thought I needed to worry about before submitting your program, and getting into it and actually doing it for real. Like the things that you thought were important weren't. And then the questions I kind of didn't expect, you always had the answers to. So the most important thing is to be able to ask an expert for help when you have those questions pop up. And I just think that made the whole coaching process for me a lot more enjoyable because I knew I could always support these guys because I could always ask you for help.
Yeah, I think like a big thing people are afraid of, and I see this all over the place. Well, thank you for sharing, by the way. I think this is what I'm noticing in the online coaching industry as a whole. There's a lot of different angles that people are selling you guys. And like, you have, for the example, the lady she talked to, she was like trying to over certify herself, or she was like, well, I need to learn this first. Guys, at the end of the day, it's not rocket science to help someone transform, but it's making sure you know the next step, right? So when you're in a coaching program where people are doing what you're actually wanting to do, it's the fastest way to learn. You're not having to reinvent the wheel or get experience. It's like getting an experience or getting experience with a client who isn't your ideal client isn't teaching you what you need to know. It's just getting you experience with that type of client, right? It's almost like there are 5 different types of workouts. Going and doing powerlifting isn't going to train you for endurance. And just because like you can do a bunch of things doesn't mean they're all going to take you to the same goal. And so it's the equivalent of like personal training versus online coaching. The best way to be an excellent online coach is to start being an excellent online coach and selling people who are the ideal people you want to serve and getting really good at serving those people. It's not doing a roundabout way of saying, well, I'm going to learn this, and this, and then I'll be ready. A lot of the times, like it's trial by fire, and doing actual action you want to learn will give you the actual skill, right? So you're not going to develop a skill in one area by going around it, which I see a lot of people worry. They're like, well, I need to learn this first and this first. Guys, ultimately, if you want to like help higher level people at a premium, there's a specific process from sales, marketing, all the way to fulfillment and coaching that we've already laid out, and we teach you step by step. It's just important that you don't get in your own way and you're thinking you've got to be the best nutrition coach, training coach, everything before you start something, because that's not what's going to happen. Most of the time, your biggest wins will come from just focusing on what you want and actually doing that thing and getting really good at it. And so I look at this as more skill development in a specific area than having to get 10 certifications to then maybe eventually end up somewhere where you feel confident enough to do the thing you were going to do anyway. Does that make sense? And so I just share this example and Molly's stuff is because she started like doing, I think, group classes at the YMCA. It was pretty chill, but she had a history of eating disorders. She had a lot of experience in nutrition and like kind of her own journey that brought her about how do you change somebody who has this mindset or this issue. And then that developed into her coaching process. But I don't want people to get too hung up on trying to like become over prepared, because that's not how success works. It's typically solving one problem at a time and just going to the next step as you learn. Does that make sense?
Also, like, and I've seen it too. I know other fitness coaches who have literally optimized for the low value client, and now they're stuck in that business because that's what they've optimized for. And it's misleading because they feel like they're getting leads and they're getting these like low ticket clients, and they kind of become like locked into it because that's what they don't even realize that the message that they're putting out is attracting more low quality leads. And once you start doing that, it's like, people are going to know you for being optimized that way. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure, guys. Like what you guys optimize for matters. And it's just important that you really try to get, like the first 2 days that we talked about, were really important, just getting optimized for who you're speaking to and understanding how to speak to them based on the motivated client versus the unmotivated client. But anyway, let's continue. Thank you for sharing, Molly. I think it's just really important for everyone to internalize this, because it seems so simple when you're like, oh, I'm just going to speak to the symptoms. I'm going to do this. Like, yes, but you could also go the complete wrong direction who you're trying to serve and how you communicate with what you think their problems are. And so, yeah, I would just say optimize for what you want, not what you think you should do first, because typically the lesson is in the action, not in the theory. And so that's the difference between what I see. A lot of people are teaching the theory of something versus the actual like action of what it takes to be that thing. So anyway, let's kind of talk about this. So what are the 4 steps to finding your ideal client on LinkedIn? This is a really important part because it's obviously how this all works. So step 1, like we talked about the other day, you need to know who you're targeting, right? So equinox-quality client versus Planet Fitness client, insight versus pain. Do you truly know how to speak to the insight that will get someone who is successful to pay attention versus trying to use pain to motivate them? We talked about that the other day. Step 2, know what they're actually looking for. So going back to what we talked about in day 2, symptoms and objectives. These are the 2 core components that will help you really stand out and understand. They're going to see, why are you equinox to them, right? Like ultimately what you're trying to do is you're like sending the bat signal of, I'm the equinox to what you want versus the Planet Fitness. And if you can't convey that message and you're just more like embodying it, like looking the part, but not saying the right things, it's going to fall flat. Step 3, target layering. So guys, on LinkedIn, there are different ways to target. And what I really believe is important is target layering. So you want to determine the right job title. You want to determine zip code, company, and years of experience. And there are different ways we layer this in our program. But for like just a starting point, job title and years of experience will give you a good starting point with like different qualifications of income. But second, I would also do company and zip code, because for example, guys, there's 5 different ways to do this. We could build an entire messaging sequence on how to communicate based on job title and years of experience. Or if that doesn't work the way that we want, we can shift over to company and zip code. Or if that's not our ideal option for the right person, we can go to job title and life event. And so on LinkedIn, what's cool is that the way that you target, we can target CEOs who've been working for X amount of years who just left their job recently. And we've noticed that transition period will create somebody who's in a space to make a change. There's a lot of different examples of this, but when it comes to targeting on LinkedIn, you want to use these strategies to get in front of people who are more ideal based on income and really based on different pain points they have, but not focusing on the pain itself, focusing on, based on the pain they're having, what are the insights you can show to show that you're in the 10% of the solution they actually need. Does that make sense? So when I bring up pain, I'm not saying like, cool, this person, has this job and they just had this life event, so they just left their job. They've been here for 10 years. What is that person going through that they're working on in the 3rd stage of awareness, not in the 1st stage of awareness, which means the 3rd stage is going to be solution aware, not problem unaware. Does that make sense? And so I'm going to rant on this a little bit, but it's important to know when you're doing the first 2 steps we discussed, then how do you apply it to targeting? Any questions on this? Does this make sense? I know I'm ranting on this, but when you're targeting, you need to understand how the other 2 pieces work to make this work. Drop in the chat if you guys have any questions on this. Jackson said makes sense. Okay.
I remember like we had a lot of my stuff dialed in pretty well, but I do remember when we were messing around with the target layering for me, there was 1 week specifically where I was like getting okay responses. And then once we switched the targeting for my guys specifically that I'm trying to connect with, it really worked. And everything else was already optimized. We didn't need to mess with, my content or my offer or any of that. But like this really made a difference. Even when we had everything figured out, we still had to kind of mess around with this and, to make it work really well.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's just like, when it comes to this, guys, it's like a Rubik's Cube, right? You have offer, you have communication, you have profile, then you have targeting. And these are always changing. And I think a lot of times, guys, like whenever you're building a business, you think that like, all right, I do it once and it's done. I'm good. I did it. And it's like, Smee, why isn't it working? Or Smee, shouldn't it work like this? I'm going to say right now, guys, everyone needs to understand marketing and paid advertising just teaches you the lesson, right? Whenever, let's say you're running paid advertising, none of you are going to need to do that in this process, but let's say I'm giving this the example. When you're running paid ads, you've got to look at the creative, you've got to look at the targeting, you've got to look at the audience, you have to look at 5 to 6 things, and you're literally adjusting them by like a hair. And that is what creates the Rubik's Cube to where you solve the puzzle. It could take you 6 to 7 iterations to get where you want to go. But if you don't know how to make those decisions when it comes to these 3 or 4 areas, you're going to confuse yourself and you don't know why the change you just made actually worked or didn't. So let's continue. Step 4, expanding your audience. So here's what's cool on LinkedIn. Once you start getting this down, you'll start to actually network with people. You start to get people who are like going to give you referrals, like, hey, I love what you're doing. This sounds like what I need, but also a friend of mine. And I literally have messages upon messages where people are like, oh, I know the CEO of this company. He's a friend of mine. He's really struggling with this, but like, let me introduce you the right way because he's kind of sensitive about it. You'll see people trying to help a lot more on LinkedIn as you actually develop a presence that they respect. Because what I've noticed is that it's just a professional environment. Like people really like to share and support business related activities. And so, even with Molly having 12,000 followers in 2 years, which is nothing. Some of you guys have 5,000 followers on Facebook or Instagram, whatever. That's the only amount she's had to generate the money she's generated, which means that like the value per person on LinkedIn is very high because of who they know and how they think. And that's really what you guys are looking for. It's not about as many people as possible. It's not about just the highest ticket price. It's how many of the right people actually believe what you do and the process you have laid out. And so let me know if that makes sense. Anything in the chat? Mr. Aldridge says, don't mind the ranting, bring it on, valuable information. Glad you like it, man. So now let's go to the next step. So let's talk about like building your LinkedIn profile. This is really important because I think a lot of people get this right, but then some people get it wrong. And so let's kind of dive into that. I'm going to use an example of one of my clients, Jeremy. Before, he was making about $36,000 a year in person, dad of 2 kids. One thing he said to me after he started doing well online, he said to me, I never realized that I couldn't eat breakfast with my kids until I started eating breakfast with them again. He's like, I realized how much I missed that. And it was interesting how he went from $36K a year to $150,000 with only 3,600 connections. And so the reason I bring this up is that it kind of looks simple, right? You're like, oh, like that's what my profile looks like. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But when you combine this messaging plus his LinkedIn messaging plus our actual sequence for generating like new conversations, people actually really buy into this. Now he's changed this a few times, but this has worked really well for him from 36 grand a year to 150,000 a year with literally no experience prior to this. Another example, we have my client Jaquan. He had his first $20,000 a month from LinkedIn, and he had done multiple programs. He was doing challenges. He was doing all sorts of things, but this isn't a really good profile example. It's more of a result. But the issue with him is he was doing a lot of challenges. He was trying to give a lot of value. And I hear a lot of people saying like, just give free stuff out. It works. Yes and no. Once again, if your free stuff isn't actually speaking to the right person, your free stuff gets people who don't really value something. And so we helped him change his messaging and start to actually speak to the right people on LinkedIn. And if you can go look at his profiles now, he's gotten tons of CEOs. And you know, it's crazy. I'm not even kidding. He's only one time. He's like, Sam, I feel like people aren't buying from me because like they don't believe I'm like the right person for them. And I was like, yeah, but also you're missing 3 or 4 of the pieces. He didn't really have a good pitch in his sales process. Like he was actually doing everything. I mean, this guy posted and posted and posted, and he would even get people on the phone and no one would ever buy from him premium because his actual pitch and offer wasn't good. And so guys, you could post, you could show up, you can go on LinkedIn right now, just DM people, you can do a million things, but if your sales process isn't good and you're not actually optimizing for the right person, it's like climbing a wall. You're trying to walk straight up a wall versus taking the stairs or taking an escalator. You're wasting the time on things that don't matter. And when it comes down to it, a lot of you guys will have different pieces that are broken, right? Some people may not even understand what LinkedIn is. Some people may have actually been very experienced. They're a coach. They've been doing it for 2 years and they're making sales, but they want to make higher ticket sales. You could be anywhere in this process. And there are probably 4 or 5 different pieces we could change. Let's go to Molly's. She's obviously here, but hers is a lot more tailored to her executives. So one thing I really like about hers is that she went from 0 connections to 12,000 connections. That's all the connections she has. And right here is her actual screenshot of $724,000 in revenue from just LinkedIn. And here's what's really cool. If I go through kind of her profile and explain to you why this works, one thing that really we tested for her that worked really well is like bringing in 12-hour work days. What we started to notice when we studied the language pattern of certain CEOs she would work with is the ones she got on sales calls with who bought from her, not all of them, every CEO had a different situation, but the ones that bought from her, kept on saying, I noticed that you really understood that I work a lot and that I have 12-hour work days. And they literally would repeat back, like, I can't believe you totally get my schedule. But it's funny. Whenever she put like stuff like without hours in the gym, it wasn't as powerful as when she said with 12-hour work days. And guys, this is an example of insight versus pain. A pain-based statement, even in her profile, would be like, I know you don't have time to spend hours in the gym. You're focusing on their fear of they don't have time for the gym versus their current issue, which is the reason they're not going to the gym is because they have 12-hour work days, not because they don't want to spend hours in the gym. Do you see what I mean? So like, it sounds stupid almost. You're like, that's so simple. But this is one shift we made. And by shifting it like to 12-hour work days or even 16-hour work days, now they believed in her messaging because of one change in her messaging.
I think
And so
I was just gonna say, like,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say before too, like when I was trying to do stuff on my own, I thought it was really important to talk about like how great my program was. Like, you're gonna get this many calls and you're gonna get a workout program and you're gonna get nutrition coaching and like I have a course. And I thought it was really important to talk about like the features of my program. And like just putting this one phrase that directly relates to my person. This isn't even, I mean, this is 12-hour work days. It doesn't really mean anything other than I just know who that person is. And that was so much more powerful than me trying to talk about how great my program was, I would have never thought of that on my own.
It's interesting because like, what's funny is this is what taught us the insight-based frameworks. Like, but I've seen this happen with like 10 different people with different ways. And what's interesting is that like, guys, insight is knowing what the problem underneath the problem is and speaking to that versus trying to sound like, because it's crazy. A lot of these CEOs would love to work out, an hour a day. Like they're not against the concept of working out a lot. What I've noticed is they're actually very disciplined. They like hard work. And so what's funny is when your messaging is like, you don't have to do anything and you're going to get a big result. Like that's not what's attracting them. It's actually going back to what we said before. How do you know who they are first? Like I said in the other trainings, who are they? And how do you say what they need to hear so they see you are an equal to them? Not you're a personal trainer trying to sell what they want to hear. And I see this a lot. It's not the right approach. And so this is just one example of many, but it's just crazy when she went from 0 connections to 12,000 connections total in a 2-year time frame and 724,000 in revenue. And guys, that's from like 6 to 10 different things we've changed over time, right? Obviously, it wasn't like a one-shot thing, but it really added up as we made a lot of detailed changes. And so, yes, does she work with CEOs? For sure. But I've seen this work for people who work with CFOs. I've seen this work for people who work with sales executives. There's a lot of markets on LinkedIn that work, but every time you have a new market and you go back through our frameworks that we talked about in day 1 and day 2, your symptoms, your problems, your insights will change, which changes everything else. So you're not just trying to be everything for everybody. You've got to get specific. So now let's kind of talk about like why like her profile worked and what makes a profile work. So you want to have the target audience in the title. So if you're helping accountants, executives, sales executives, CFOs, it doesn't matter who you're working with, software engineers, they're all LinkedIn. You have to be able to speak to who they are, obviously. Second part, what differentiates you from other people? So like this goes back to what's a key objective they have. And they may have 10 key objectives, but do you really know what the highest priority key objective is for them to actually take this seriously? Because what some of you might do is you'll focus on the wrong key objective and you're like, well, why isn't this working? Because maybe they don't care about what you're talking about and you don't understand them as well as you think you do, which is a big piece of marketing. Maybe you got to change your creative. You got to change, what the image they're seeing is and what part of the insight to their actual issue you're showing them so that they buy in to the process based on their problem. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Scott was like, no, let's see. No food restrictions really, midsection fat. What did you tell them the spot reduction is a myth? We'll get into that, Scott. All right, so let's go to the next one. Compelling image, guys. Like, for example, obviously this is something that doesn't have to be said too much, but Molly's profile image is very professional. Like she's not wearing fitness clothes. I hate to say it, but I'm sure some of you already know this and it makes sense, but she looks more like a CEO than she looks like a personal trainer. Does that make sense? And so like, as much as you guys want to be like, I'm the personal trainer behind to my side, your image matters. So how can you look more professional and look more like a CEO than a personal trainer? That's a really important part. So you have to have people on their first, like when they think of you, they need their perception to be, oh, she's like me or he's like me. They understand me and everything that lines up with that. And this is probably pretty common sense for a lot of people, but you need to look more like a CEO and have that presentation. Also, another thing is like, she's in Nashville. She took a picture in Nashville. Pretty obvious, but she created, once again, one more point of similarity to who we targeted. So, with her, she was targeting Nashville CEOs. Look who the client who gave her 100 grand plus. He was a Nashville CEO, because a lot of things lined up to create the right image, the right perception, the right messaging, the right insights, and that really created a stronger argument, and also just trust and safety, right? He's like, oh, she's in Nashville, I'm in Nashville, right? Does that mean you have to only work with people in your local area? No, but we built multiple marketing strategies that allowed her to hyper focus on a certain, because she wanted to do that. But we could also do it in 15 other different ways. Does that make sense? We just chose to do that with her stuff. Any questions on that? All right, next up. So here's kind of the high level banner formula of like why that works. So what's the title? Who are you calling out? What's the service for what person, right? What is the promise and outcome you give them based on insight? So science-backed, sustainable game plan to get what result without something that they can't currently do in their actual time, right? Don't make it about fitness, make it about them, right? And then obviously like DM to start is a great way to have a call to action, because people respond to being told what to do at the end of the day. Like you could have all this info, but if you don't have any call to actions that are communicating the outcome or what you want them to do, it definitely falls flat. And I'm sure you guys have seen this a lot in marketing. It's obviously effective, and this isn't rocket science, but obviously as you get this down and you know your client, you want to have the ability to just get them to reach out to you, and this matters. Cool. So any questions from this at this point? Anything coming up, drop it in the chat. Any questions here?
I just have something to say as far as like having like a professional presence and a professional appearance. I think for me, just in this program in general, I have transformed in a lot of ways. Like I just felt like my whole business matured because I was optimizing for LinkedIn. And that goes for like your presence in images, the way that you're talking, your content, like everything. But I also remember, this is kind of like off topic, but I remember with my sales calls, when you first listened to my sales calls, my like personal energy is pretty high and like pretty excited all of the time. And for me, at least in the initial like connecting sales call, when I'm like potentially getting a new client, I remember you were basically telling me how to have like a different posture in my calls. And you were able to give me examples of other like professional calls with LinkedIn people who had closed. And I realized like, it's not like I was missing information. It's not like I wasn't smart enough, because I had a few calls on LinkedIn that didn't close and I wanted to know why. And so I was able to show you my sales calls and be like, what do I need to do differently? So yeah, you have to have like a professional presence for sure, but it's also about, when you do connect with people, there's also like a professional way to communicate your offer, and even just like how you're speaking, tone of voice. Like there's so many nuanced things that I wouldn't have picked up on my own without some kind of feedback and without being able to see also like examples. I'm the kind of person where I'm like, I can learn anything, but like I need an example. I need to see it done correctly once. And if I see it done correctly once, then I can copy that process. That's just how I am. And so you had exactly the examples that I needed to see, as opposed to, again, the business program that I was in before. It was just general business coaching. And they never even listened to any of my sales calls. So I was like, awesome. I'm literally like missing sales. And I don't know if I need to just keep trying more, which was not the answer, or if I'm doing things wrong and like, you guys can't even tell me what I'm doing wrong. So there's a lot to learn, but.
Yeah, it's interesting how like, just like with fitness, like when you guys get clients, they could be doing like 6 things wrong, but you can't solve all 6 problems at the same time. You have to solve them in the order in which they're dealing with the problem. And so, if somebody's binge drinking at night, you're not trying to fix their nutrition. You're trying to get them to stop binge drinking. And so a lot of the times, guys, when it comes to like business stuff, you could be posting constantly. You could be showing up all everywhere. You could have the best copy. You could like think you're doing, I'd say 90% right, but the 10% you're missing, you don't know why it's not working. And you could actually not be very good at sales. You could be completely butchering like how to pitch to a CEO or a high level client. And it's maybe different from what you've tried in the past. So you're following maybe what you've used for other clients to try to pitch people on LinkedIn, which could also fall flat. There's 16 different ways that you could be messing up something that could unlock, another $200,000 just by you shifting the way that you do something. And I just see it all the time where like, man, people come from other programs or people like, oh, all right, cool. So maybe just have me post content on LinkedIn, reach out to people, and they think it's that simple. And sometimes for some people it is. Most of the time, I'm going to say 90% of the time, that person is completely lost, but they look like they're doing all the things right, which is why it's so insidious to think that you're following like a bunch of processes. You're like, most people, guys, they'll hire business coaches who never talk to them, who don't actually mentor them, and who give them a course and say good luck. And I can't believe that people don't ever question that, because the fact of the matter is they're not able to actually get feedback, but they're getting feedback from, let's say, other coaches in that person's program who've never actually done it. And then they're getting pretty much like 4 people down the grapevine of someone who doesn't actually know what to do. And so you're waiting on a lot of feedback that is just taking long because that person doesn't know the answer. And so when it comes down to it, guys, you need somebody who actually knows the market, knows who you are, knows what's going on in your business. And if you don't, they cannot help you. It doesn't matter how smart they are, because just like anybody else, you guys all have different issues, strengths, weaknesses, skills you've got to develop. And we don't know what's actually holding you back until we dive deeper into it. I hope that makes sense. So let's kind of recap and kind of dive into what we've gone through. So day 1, we covered the model of transitioning from offline to online. Day 2, we really went through the process of positioning yourself and attracting the ideal client. And day 3, we're talking about how to actually use LinkedIn as a vehicle to get ideal clients. And so, I want you guys to all pretty much, as like day 3 homework, craft a profile message. I want you to kind of craft like what we just talked about, in the sense that you have the ability to communicate what I'm trying to say. So I want to see what you guys post in the group about the profile. What is it? Like, what is your messaging based on what you think you should do? And I want you to just drop it in the actual group, just like you did day 1 and day 2 homework, okay? Robert said, so if you have a LinkedIn profile, sounds like I need to revamp what I currently have, or should I just create a new one? Robert, I would definitely just keep your current profile and revamp it, because if you have connections, there's no reason for you to redo everything, if that makes sense. So at this point, guys, here's the truth. You might be wondering, how do I start reaching out to the right people? How do I create the right content? Should I create content on other platforms? How do I market myself to get them to reach out to me? How do I do outreach? Do I just cold DM people? Is there a different way to do it? How do I deliver the service that a CEO would pay $22,000 for, right? These are all great questions. And this is why we have our mentorship program. Ultimately, we have our core program, which is a 4 to 6 month signature step-by-step high-touch program, really to help designed to help you make that transition to this model. And guys, I don't care if you've been through other business coaching programs. I don't care if you've paid for Facebook ads, they didn't work. There's a lot of things that if you've never worked with like a high-level client that's paid you $20,000 plus, none of those programs speak to that actual problem. And so you've never done that. I don't care what you've done experience-wise, it probably wasn't right for you based on what we're teaching here. And so our goal is really to help you create a model where you attract high-quality clients, you work with fewer people at a premium, and you create a referral process where people actually work with you longer term who can pay you a lot more money. And so, even having the ability to get, 10 clients at $3,000 a month who are like ecstatic to work with you, and the referrals from that, it's life-changing. It truly is. And guess what? You get to work 10 to 20 hours a week and enjoy your business. And then eventually, if you want to reinvest to paid advertising, other things in your business, now you've got the cash flow to actually do that. But I see people doing organic marketing. I see them trying 15 different things, and it's not really succinct and built around the right system. And so let's kind of talk about like, what does this process look like if you guys were to work with us, how that works, why we do this way, and kind of go from there. So phase 1 in our program, what we do is we actually work with you one-on-one to develop your ideal clients. Sometimes people have up to 3 to 4 ideal clients, and it might sound ridiculous, but on LinkedIn, there are a few ways to actually do this. And in the beginning, you might not work with one person, and that's okay, because it's not as simple as just like picking one person and then just going and optimizing everything for it. Over time, you will want to do that. But if you prematurely optimize, you can go one direction for 6 months that was not the right direction. And we have a process to test if this ideal client is right for you before you get started, so you don't waste a lot of time. And we work with you one-on-one. You have one-on-one coaches. I will work with you personally on this so that you're actually learning from the person who's actually done it. Phase two, now you need a lead generation system. So how do you follow with people? Do you just DM them? Do you get their phone numbers? Do you get their emails? Do you post every single day? Do you do LinkedIn lives? How do you do all that to where once you define this person, people actually, you can hold their attention on LinkedIn? Because at the end of the day, if all you guys are doing is posting and DMing people, you're missing like 50% of the process. And so I see this a lot. People are like, oh, I'm just going to go and DM people and talk to as many people as possible. You're told that a lot, but the issue is it's not very strategic, and you burn out a big portion of your audience just reaching out constantly. Because what I notice is, here's what people do. Like, all right, cool. So Smeeb said reach out on LinkedIn. I'm gonna go reach out to CEOs. I'm gonna reach out to CEOs. I'm gonna say a certain message. You go through, 500 CEOs and you say a message they don't care about. Now 500 CEOs don't resonate with what you're saying, and you keep doing that. You keep doing it, and now you're like, oh, LinkedIn doesn't work. I tried to reach out to all these CEOs. They didn't respond to me. This doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's because you're following your way. And a lot of times people will take an idea and they'll run with it. And that's actually why a lot of times people fail. I'm not saying taking action is bad. I think a true entrepreneur is always going to go act first, think later. But if what you're doing isn't working, or you don't know how to really do this properly, I don't want you to burn out your audience, sending the wrong messages, DMing people constantly, having the wrong offer communicated, and then trying to wonder, what are you doing wrong? Which I see a lot, which is what we help you guys with. And then really an important part of phase three is, how do you actually pitch your high ticket deals, right? Let's say you do the first two parts right. Now what happens when you're on the phone with a CEO who has a budget of $3,000 a month? What do you say to that person? How do you guide them through what they've tried in the past? How do you show them you're actually valuable for the price point you bring up, without them saying, well, yeah, but I've hired a trainer before and this and that? Like, do you really know how to communicate that value? If not, what we do is I actually personally review your sales calls. I will give you breakdowns and step-by-steps of what you're saying in each phase of the call. There are 3 different phases. And if you're messing up in the connection phase, or you're messing up in the pitch, it all depends. Do you do a 1-call close? Do you do a 2-call close? It depends. We go through really deep detail around sales, guys, because at the end of the day, you can't pressure a CEO into buying. That person is the last person to be pressured into buying your services. And the more salesy you come across and the less congruent you come to those calls, like everything is then lost at that point, because now they're like, oh, this person's like a trainer trying to convince me to buy like an expensive package that makes them feel like you're trying to take advantage of them. And so what we do in our sales process is super low pressure. It's really easy for us to then show you the 3 phases and how to lean out the right way for these types of clients. Because whether you're working with a CEO, a doctor, a lawyer, they're all higher level professional careers. And so these people don't respond well to manipulation. They don't respond well to pressure. So we show you how to do intrinsic pressure that is based on the right questions, so that as you talk to people, they're just like, damn, this person's really cool. And like, I believe in their process. And so process and offer driven sales will be the way you're going to go about pitching to CEOs, versus like trying to manipulate them with words, trying to like challenge them. It doesn't work very well when you do it like that. So that's a really important part of what we do. And then really with phase 4, like, how do you actually help these people? Let's say you get a client for $22,000. Like, what do you do? Right. And a lot of these programs, you're taught to like, all right, well, work with low level clients and then you get high ticket clients and then you'll be ready. Well, that's not true, right? We have a process of how do you take a CEO? How do you take somebody who has high expectations and a high desire to change and not disappoint them when you sell them premium service? Do you need like crazy things? You need to send them an Oura ring? Like, all these questions come up. What makes it worth it for a CEO to work with you at a high level? Is it just customization? Right? We go into that in our program. We go into a step-by-step process of coaching. We show you what are the different phases of coaching you actually take people through for them to be like a raving fan. And it's a lot different than what you probably see, which is just sending people a workout and giving them trainerized access. That's cool. But there's also a coaching process we teach for your calls. So what do you do to lead a CEO? What I've noticed a lot in the pattern of these kind of clients is these CEOs want to be led. They don't want to just be like given information. They're like, all right, good luck. That's not what we're saying. There's a coaching process that goes with the actual fulfillment process with the trainerized and the other stuff that helps them buy in, right? Because if a CEO or even a high-level client, they don't buy into your process and they lose belief in the first 2 weeks, they're going to check out. And then now you have that unmotivated client you're worried about. But in this case, they're not unmotivated because they don't have motivation. They're unmotivated because they don't trust you or believe in you after you just sold them something expensive. And so we really help you guys identify and break past that period of it. And so, yeah, guys, like, at the end of the day, this is what it's like to work with us. And let me just kind of dive into some more results we have. So for example, one of our clients, Rebecca, she got a client from LinkedIn, $9,000 for 6 months. So pretty much $4,500 for each 12-week phase. That's roughly $1,500 a month per client. And this person she talked to like less than an hour a week. Another example, we have one of our clients, Till, a $16,000 sale for the whole year from LinkedIn. He had never done a high ticket sale in his life. He was posting on Instagram before he worked with us. Another client of mine, Zara, she was actually a speech pathologist working a full-time job. And in her first 90 days, she made her first $7,000. And after that, she got more recurring revenue. And all these clients were at $1,000 a month minimum. That's the only way she can go from her full-time job to actually working with clients online. Because guys, if you charge under $1,000 a month, like there's no way for you to build a business. That's not going to happen. Ideally, 1,000 is the minimum, up to $3,000 a month. Then you actually have a business that takes care of you. Another client of mine, Ashley, she got 2 new clients, LinkedIn for 4,500. So there are different people, different starting points, right? We have Taewoo. He got a $7,500 client. You know what's funny? This guy worked at Apple. And so he used our company targeting for this. And he found a higher level employee at Apple who signed up for $7,500 paid in full, when this guy literally had 0 online business. And so the point is guys, I've seen a lot of beginner coaches do $7,500 sales or $10,000 sales. And I just think a lot of you guys think like, I need to be ready to do that. It's actually the opposite. You need the right process to have the confidence to do that. Otherwise, this is going to continue to fall flat. Heather, brand new coach. She was like a marathon runner. This lady pretty much worked at the YMCA as well. She's very similar to Molly. She's a mom. She's about 40 and got her first $3,000 client from LinkedIn. She was brand new. She's like, Sameem, I only feel comfortable with this. Could she have sold for a higher level? Absolutely. But her first client, she's like, I just want to see if it works. 0 clients on LinkedIn before this and got a CEO as her first client. Another example, Cody. I mean, they lost power in Dallas last year and literally he couldn't go to the gym. He was an Equinox trainer, right? And he was like, man, I can't do anything today. Literally got on LinkedIn, followed the process, got a $6K deal from LinkedIn when he couldn't go to the gym, which was the coolest thing for me because it made me excited to see that when shit goes wrong in your life as a trainer, you don't have to rely on a gym or going to somebody or meeting with somebody to be able to generate income. Another example, Danielle, she was once again doing a bunch of stuff. I mean, she's a mom as well. And she got an $8,000 paid in full client from LinkedIn. I think he lives in Nebraska. So, obviously you see Molly targeting in Nashville because that's where she's from, but we have people targeting all over the world based on our different targeting strategies, and they're getting clients across the board. Another example, Boyan, my client, $12,000 in sales in their very first week of doing calls. Now, for example, he's a medical doctor, right? So, he had the advantage of being a medical doctor, but it's not like his sale is higher than Molly's, who has literally 0 experience as a medical doctor. So guys, you see all these examples, you're like, oh, well, do I have to be an MD? Clearly he's a doctor, right? He got a $12,000 sale. Molly's made higher ticket sales than this guy, and he's a doctor. Does that mean you have to be like the most expert to make sales? No. My client, Sophia, she's a tier X coach at Equinox. She got her first $8,000 sale in her first 2 weeks. And so guys, like I have endless examples. I have so many screenshots. It makes me sick in the stomach because I'm like, more and more and more. Guys, it doesn't matter where you're starting. It doesn't matter what you've tried in the past. It doesn't matter how experienced you are. It's having the right mentorship from the right people. And I just think it's more important that you guys think about it the right way from the start than to worry about, do you have everything ready beforehand? Does that make sense? And so, yeah, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drop the link to apply to work with us in the chat. You can totally take that and apply. And what we'll do is we'll just talk about it, right? There's no pressure on this. I want to see where you're at, what you've tried, what hasn't worked for you. And I want to see if this makes sense for you, right? Because for some people, I may actually not suggest it. If you're at a certain point in your business, could everyone benefit? Yes, but we don't want to bring in people who are just trying to do it for the money. I want people who are actually wanting to be a good coach. And the reason I say that is because, guys, as much as I can teach you how to do the right fulfillment, I can teach you the right marketing, I can coach you through everything. You guys have to have the desire to help people. It isn't just about like, cool, how can I get as much money as possible for like, as little as possible? That's not what you want. And so I'm going to drop that link here. I'm also going to drop it in the Facebook group as well. But yeah, any questions on this? Anything coming up? Was this helpful? Drop in the chat. We'll sit here for a couple minutes. I think, let's see. John said, so helpful. This is amazing. Thanks so much. Cliff, any good takeaways for you? Anybody, anything coming up for you? Robert said, very helpful and crucial for success. Scott said, yes, very helpful. Let's see. All right, well, but yeah, guys, if you need help on this and you don't want to waste time, you don't want to try to figure this all out on your own, Cliff, I'm selling 5 to 10K now, but not on LinkedIn. So yeah, lots of good things. We'll talk soon. Definitely, man. Would love to chat further. Yeah, guys, once again, I'll kind of end this with this. At the end of the day, you can spend a lot of time figuring this out. And even if you're an experienced coach, what's crazy? I've seen a lot of people who've bought a lot of stuff, right? It's not about buying a new strategy. Sometimes what you're really missing is you're missing custom support. I see a lot of times where people are buying into business programs or courses or support, and it's sold like you're going to get support, but you never actually talk to the person who knows what they're doing. And guys, I'm telling you right now, I've paid $50,000 plus for mentors like one-on-one, and nothing beats getting someone's personal attention who actually knows what they're doing. It's not the same as like 4 of their coaches who like kind of know it, but they never built a business. It's not the same. And I see this a lot. Jeremy, what's up, man? He's
What's up, everybody?
Oh, Jeremy, what's your experience, man? This is one of my other clients. I was actually talking about you a minute ago.
Ah, awesome. Well, appreciate having me on in. Go ahead. What were you guys talking about? What was your question? I'll be happy to jam.
Yeah, Jeremy. So I was kind of talking about how, like, I know you when you started, you were posting on Facebook. You were doing a lot of stuff before you joined us, and I kind of shared your story about how you're making about 36 grand a year. And I think you've done over 150, probably a little more this year. What did you experience before joining us that like completely flipped as you got into this process? And kind of what were some of you like, just what were some takeaways that you thought you weren't going to learn that like really stood out for you and how we do stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So like you had mentioned, I felt like before I joined in with you, I was working online, and I really did feel like I was doing a lot of stuff, a ton of different posting. I felt like I was always trying to put different things out, the normal, Instagram stories, hopping on a bunch of different Facebook posts. And what I realized, and I guess the biggest thing that I took away coming into the program was that like the posting was a huge waste of time because I didn't have any sort of strategy behind it. And it wasn't that I shouldn't be creating content. It was that I learned coming in through your program that like I had to have a much better structure and actually start talking to the right people. So instead of just putting out workout tips and like how to drink more water and like all of these posts just to make me feel like I was doing stuff on social media, one of the biggest parts from like the marketing standpoint is I realized that I was not targeting anybody in particular. I was just talking to the masses. And once I was able to hone in on the types of people that I like to work with and actually wanted to work with, and I started speaking their language, I'm posting way less now in my business than I ever was back then. But they're much more structured and more thought through posts to be able to, again, just talk to like the right person. The other really, I think like 2 pieces, if I can give like my top 3, I came in and the long story before I even got into fitness, I worked in outside sales. So sales was part of my background. So I was always comfortable and felt like I had a good sales process and felt like I had the right mindset going into sales calls and getting new clients. And I quickly realized like that my very first sales call after I got my first person on the phone through Fitness Business Mentors is that the way that I was attacking sales and my thought process was so far off that even if my marketing was great, there was no way I was going to land these clients. There was just the disconnect between what I thought I should be doing and what I was actually doing when it came to the communication of my program was so far off that it was unbelievable. And I saw you smiling, Samin, but I remember like you going over a couple of my first sales calls that I was pretty confident coming into, because like I got a sales background, I've been personal trainer for years, like this is no problem, I'm just doing what I always do. And it was not the case. It was a false sense of security that I had. So that was a huge portion that I got out of the last like 18 months, is my communication skills to work with the ideal clients is much different than it's ever been. And it makes a world of a difference. So the sales piece of things was definitely a humbling part. And it was something that I did not think I would struggle with at all. I came in like signing up thinking it was all about marketing. I just needed to find the right clients. But that was very eye-opening once I was able to go through my first couple of sales calls.
For sure, man. It's interesting because like you don't have that many connections or followers, do you? And you've generated, like, I think we went through yours. You had like, I think you had like 3,600 connections in LinkedIn, and you've done over $150,000 purely online when you were only in person before.
Yeah. So like coming from a LinkedIn standpoint, I made the commitment to join in with you. And after I got off my call with you, I had to sign into LinkedIn and forget my password and go through all that, because I hadn't been on LinkedIn in years. It was probably 7 or 8 years. I had to put one together in college and had done nothing with that. So me starting on LinkedIn, I mean, I started with 50 or 60 connections and then have built that. And yeah, I'm at, nothing crazy, 3,000, 3,500 now over the last almost 2 years. But throughout that process, so much of my revenue has come from LinkedIn that I don't know the number offhand, but I would say at least 150 to 175,000 from LinkedIn, starting from 50 people that were classmates of mine in college.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like you realize that like quality matters and communication matters. And what's interesting is like, do you feel like in our program, we actually give you mentorship versus a course? I think a lot of the times I see people, they join really expensive courses that they're thinking is mentorship. And like, I think that it's crazy to see what people spend on things where they're actually not getting support from like somebody who knows what they're doing. What's your experience been with how we actually supported you?
Yeah, looking back at my first 6-7 months within your program, like early on as starting, the course was obviously there and there were lots of information in there, but I actually didn't use the course as much as I ever thought I would have, because it was the group calls and it was the one-on-one support where I was given enough direction to know what I had to be doing next. That was a huge piece of it. The course is fantastic that you have built out, but truth be told, looking back, I did not even use it to its fullest extent, because I was able to have the experience both with group calls and one-on-ones that I always knew what the next step needed to be.
And Jeremy, I'm curious, like you had never worked with like you now work with like CFOs and like certain analytical types. You had never worked with them online in like a high tech capacity. What were you selling before, and then like what are the packages you're selling now?
Yeah, so when I was an in-person personal trainer for years, group classes, ran some personal training studios, and then made the transition to what I called my version of online, where I was just administering personal training sessions via Zoom, which I thought was great at the time. But I realized, I saw Scott on here with his kids, and this I was the same way. Like I had my kids at home, and yeah, Scott. I had my kids at home, and I realized that I was just personal training from my garage with my kids in the other room, and it was no different than personal training in a studio. So that, long story short, my version of going online was selling $75 hour-long sessions and administering them via Zoom instead of being actually in the gym. So what I was doing online was selling personal training sessions. So, $35, $40 for half hour, $75 to $100 for hour-long sessions, giving a little bit of nutrition advice here and there for $150 a month, and really just trying to piece together some sort of online program and piece together a little bit of revenue. So no, like what I'm doing now is 1000% different than I had ever done in the past.
Yeah, how much more free time do you have, and like what are your package prices now? Like what's the highest package you've sold up to this point, and how has that changed the time you get to spend with your family?
Yeah, so the big motivator for me coming into the program obviously was the support of the financial support for me supporting my family. But the other big one was me being able to spend time with them. As the traditional personal training in gym, like eating breakfast with my kids just was a no-go, right? Like that was not a thing. You always were at the gym at those times. As my kids were going to daycare, I was never doing daycare drop off. I was never able to do any of those things because I was physically in the gym. So as I've transitioned to the online fashion where I'm not having to spend time administering workouts and counting reps and that sort of thing, and I'm able to focus more on the big picture with my clients, it's freed up my time tremendously. I mean, I don't work with clients majority of the time before 9 a.m. I set my own schedule so that I don't generally work with my clients after 5 p.m. I'm able to do daycare drop off. My oldest daughter is starting kindergarten next month. And like, I've already committed, like I get to do daycare and kindergarten drop off 5 days a week, all school year. So those are the big time pieces that have freed up for me. That I just was talking to my wife the other day thinking, thank God I'm not in the gym anymore or running the packages like I was, because there'd be no way I'd be able to be with my family and be able to provide that portion of it. So the time is way freed up. I mean, I bet you I cut my actual hours in half from what I was doing in person to what I'm doing now.
Yeah, and how many hours are you working like per week, would you say, to make what you're making now?
I probably some weeks more, some weeks less, but 25 hours would be a fair estimate of what I'm putting into my program. And this is my full-time gig. I'm not doing anything else. I'm not half working in the gym or have a second job doing anything else. So roughly 25 hours. And then my packages, for example, even currently with some of my clients who've been grandfathered in with some different pricing, I don't have anybody that's paying me less than $1,000 a month for programs. And a majority of them are paid in full at the get-go. So I think the biggest package that I've sold was 15,000. And all of them now going forward are between 9 to 15 off the bat.
For sure, man. Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to see. Like, yeah, what would you guys? I mean, both you and Molly, what would you guys say to somebody who's in a similar position? You guys are obviously different but similar. Like, what would you say to someone who's like on the fence and trying to be like, do they need to go get a bunch of certifications? Like, what do you think they should do when it comes to like making a decision to build their business? Like, is it business and marketing first, or is it trying to get like overly prepared? Like, what do you guys see there? And I'll let Jeremy go first, and then Molly say your perspective. Like, what should they do if they're in that position when they're just starting out, they're not sure what to do, or they've tried other things that didn't work?
To be fair, I've tried the overly prepared route. Like that's where I was before I joined you. It's trying to figure out everything and making sure that I had all my ducks in a row. But looking from a certification standpoint, I mean, I don't have a whole lot, right? Like I don't have all of these crazy certifications. I have a little bit of a background in nutrition and my CPT, and that's it. So for my suggestion would be, having an awesome program is great. And I had a great program, but no one knew about it and no one was paying me for it. So my suggestion would be, like, you got to know who you're marketing to, and you have to build your business in order for your program to ever matter. And I think that's a big thing that was a struggle for me. Is here I was joining your program and I didn't even know what I was going to be selling yet. And I had to get over that fact. But I realized that it didn't matter what I was selling if I wasn't selling anything, right? So I really, really had to figure out how to build my business to make it successful, so that I was building something that I actually wanted. I didn't want to start over and then realize that I wasn't actually building a sustainable business for me. So I would say 100% got to get your business down, and then the program is going to fall into place, because the clients that we're able to bring in your program are people that are really, really motivated to be there, and they don't need as much of the hands-on as what I was used to. So it was people I enjoyed working with that were taking it super seriously, which made the coaching significantly more enjoyable and honestly easier.
Yeah, and then you got those results, and you can market those results, so your authority goes higher. it's because you sold the right client. You weren't
Right.
looking to motivate the wrong client. I see a lot of people, I see other business coaches, and I'm sure many people are creating a huge impact for a lot of people. But one thing I disagree with is that business coaches will sell the idea like, how do you find a client, or how do you motivate your clients? Like, well, you get a client that doesn't require as much motivation. Yeah, we all need to help clients get back on track sometimes. We're all human. But if that client's core drivers aren't about getting the results based on their nature and what they've experienced and what they want, then you're going to be spending a lot of time not getting testimonials from good people who don't really do the work. And now you just hate your coaching business because you weren't thinking about like the end in mind, which is, what would life look like if my clients were doing the work? And how many more clients would I have as a result of clients showing up saying, this worked for me because I care about this result, and they were a good coach, right? What about you, Molly? What would you say?
I was going to say, like, don't try to grade your own paper. Just looking back, thinking in the beginning when I thought I could maybe figure it out if I spent enough time doing it, like I was just wrong about what I thought I needed to be focusing on. And the truth is, like, we need to understand that our area of expertise is being a fitness or nutrition coach. Like, so if you're going to try to figure it out yourself, like, you essentially have to become a business expert, and that takes years. So first of all, I think that I don't think I would have ever figured out the high ticket premium client way of doing this. I know myself, I was going in the wrong direction, focusing on details that didn't matter. The other thing is, like, there is a process, and people need to know, like, everybody's different, right? So it's going to be different depending on who you're taking through the process. But like, there is a right way and there's a wrong way to prime your profile. There is a right way, there's a wrong way to connect and message with people. There's a right way and a wrong way to do a sales call. And then there's a right way and a wrong way to fulfill on your offer. And for me, it's like, if you're doing it the wrong way, how are you going to know what, if you're trying to do it on your own, or if you're trying to do it with a general business coach that doesn't understand fitness, how are you going to know if, like, what piece of the puzzle isn't working, what part of the process you're messing up in? There's no way, unless you have someone like you that does have the insight where you can instantly see what I'm doing wrong. Anytime I hit a wall or I'm like, something's not working, you can see very quickly what's not working. So I think that is really important. But the other thing is, like, what's cool is that you have this process down, and we've seen how many people have gone through the program and gotten results. Like, it's very clear that the process you have works. But also, half of it is having a process that works and an actual method to follow. There's no guessing. There's a correct way to do this. But also the other half is, like, even once I joined the program, like, you and me still had to adjust things. Even when I was doing things the right way, it takes time. That's where, like, you cannot do it without the mentorship, and you cannot do it without mentorship like this. That is this much one-on-one attention. Like, you need that too. So yeah, there is a process. You have the right process. It works. And also the mentorship piece is what will make that process work better and better over time. So, and I think those were two things that I didn't know until I jumped into this.
Yeah, for sure, guys. And I just kind of want to reiterate kind of what they're both saying. Guys, people say, well, all right, so what's the success rate? Or they say, what's this, what's that? Ask yourself a different question. Whenever you guys bring on a client, let's say you have 5 of your favorite clients, and someone says, like, what's your success rate? It all depends on the goal, right? So like Molly and Jeremy, they both wanted a 6-figure business, and they have that, right? It depends on where you're at. So if you're just starting out, you're like, Smeem, I just want to be able to make $20,000 and see if it's possible. That's possible for you. You're like, Smeem, I want to make $1 million. That's possible. Anything you want, we've helped people achieve that based on what they wanted. So whenever you guys think success rate, this, that, results, ultimately all it comes down to is, do you trust that we can help you? If you believe we can help you, that's the first part. Second part is, now what is your goal, right? You have to be clear on what your goal, what you want to achieve. Then we can talk about success rate. I've never seen somebody come in with a goal and a specific outcome they wanted to achieve, they didn't do it. The only time I've ever seen people, we could say, not succeed is if they just didn't know what they wanted, right? They came in, they're like, oh, I just want to make my money back. And that's okay. They made their money back, but that's not a crazy result, because it's just based on their desires. And so guys, just like your clients don't always need to lose 100 pounds, or they don't all want to build muscle, they're all going to have different goals, and your success rate is just depending on where they're at in that process. So if you guys have a big goal, if you have a small goal, it doesn't matter. All that really matters is that you're willing to start and achieve the first step, and then make bigger goals. So if you don't believe you can do what Molly or Jeremy has done, that's okay. It's not, you don't have to be like, oh man, they've done these crazy numbers, I don't know if I can do that. even if you started at a fourth or half the goal they had, to show yourself it's possible and let us mentor you, then you can go and you can create a larger goal. But you can't ever create a big goal when you don't have the awareness of knowing how to even start. And I think that's what a lot of people, they're afraid of. They're like, well, to get started, what if I don't do, what if I don't jump into a 6-figure business? Was it worth it? Well, the only way to get to a 6-figure business is have the awareness of what it takes to even get your first client at a premium and serve them and then get that result. Nothing you ever want happens in one shot. It's a process of understanding it and awareness. You guys have anything to add to that?
I would just agree. And I know me coming in, I would have not, I didn't believe that Molly was who I looked up to coming to the program. I never believed that I would I could never do what Molly does. I wanted to be able to pay for daycare. And then I started to understand and okay, well then I built that next step and that next step that got me here. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I would have probably been sitting here thinking the same thing of I can't get to that, but that wasn't my goal. So that totally agree.
Yeah, guys, I mean, it's just really important that you think the right way, right? This isn't about working harder, doing more, just putting in the reps, because just like you guys know, with fitness clients or any clients you have, there could be 3 different phases they have to go through before they even get to the primary goal they're looking for. And you have to know the order of operations that makes sense for you. And so that's what we help you figure out in our program. We give you one-on-one mentorship. We give you a great course, and we give you very detailed feedback, which is what most people need. I just see a lot of people selling business coaching courses, not business mentorship. And that's a big distinction you want to make when you're looking for programs is, am I actually getting mentorship? Is someone really guiding me, analyzing my steps, my feedback? Because if you're not getting that, guys, there are a lot of courses out there where people can sell information, but how many of them have done what you're trying to do specifically and getting clients you want? Because you don't need a lot of clients to build a 6 or 7-figure business. You need the right clients, you need the right process, and you need to know where you're making mistakes. And so, yeah, guys, thanks for sharing. I mean, I wasn't expecting Jeremy to be here, but I'm glad you're here as well. If you guys have any questions, drop it in the chat, but I will drop the link to apply in the chat in the Facebook group. And you can also reach out for any questions you have, but really, really glad to have everybody here and everybody who's been able to attend. Anybody who's in the group who hasn't seen all the trainings, please go back and watch them, because we really provided a lot of value and the truth, right? You know what I love about this business is I get to make money telling the truth. And I feel like I see a lot of marketing and I'm like, that person is making money by trying to lie about the process. And every time I see that, it really turns me off, because guys, you don't have to lie to make money. You don't have to say something that's not true to make money. You've got to go do something you believe in and then produce from that state. And that's why I really believe in insight-driven sales and not pain-based sales, because a lot of times people will pay you a lot of money for one small piece of a puzzle. They don't need you to solve all their life problems to pay you a premium and be motivated. And so just the same thing here, guys, you're trying to take the next step in your career. And that doesn't have to start by knowing how to make $1 million tomorrow. It start by, how do you get your first high-ticket client who does what you say, who pays you, $1,000 a month, then build from there. So yeah, guys, wonderful having you. And if you have any questions and you don't want to go it alone and you would like our support and you want to have a community of people who are like you, and you want to have my direct mentorship and coaches in our program, and you want to be able to just know that you're following the right process, then reach out. I'm going to drop the link to apply in the chat. So you fill that out and then it'll redirect you to a call, and that's how you'll schedule. And I'll help you figure out what is the right step for you, even based on where you're at. It's going to be different from where they're at. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that you know that this is the beginning of you generating the 6-figure business you want, but it has to start somewhere. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for being here, and I will talk to you soon.